Hey everybody, my name is Brad. We are live here at the Paste Studios, and we are live with author and entrepreneur and so many other things, Mr. Michael Dorf. Michael, thanks for being here, man.
How are you?
And
It's weird being called an author, just so you know. I don't feel like one, really.
Well, it is true, and I have demonstrable evidence here that happened. Indulge Your Senses, Scaling Intimacy in a Digital World exists, and I've read it, and I liked it a lot.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. Dude, I took it out in the woods.
I know, that's such a cool way to do it.
Yeah. Packed a picnic, and I indulged my senses. That's exactly what I was doing. I got a bottle of Fernet Branca, I got a picnic, and I got your book, and I read it out in the woods.
You're my new best friend for sure.
It seemed like the very appropriate place to enjoy your book because it is all about having analog experiences as opposed to the digital representations of those things, which is, as I say to you on this live stream, to the internet right now, and there is an importance for both things.
Exactly.
But, it is extremely important to get out from behind the screen as frequently as possible and go get dirty and sweat and,
We need these things.
Yeah.
Thank you for all the textures in this room. This is a really cool studio. It is as intense a small room as one could ever have, with so much history and media surrounding us. You get a great vibe from it. It reminds me a little bit of John Zorn's bedroom, which is just stacked floor to ceiling with masters and old records and just media everywhere.
Yeah.
A lot of texture.
Well, so that leads us, I think, pretty elegantly into the, I want to go chronologically here and talk about what's in this book. And I didn't know that the guy who founded the Knitting Factory is also the guy who founded City Winery is you.
One and the same.
Yeah. And so can we talk about the rise of popularity of the Knitting Factory, the struggle that it took to get it there, and then as control was lost and as things spiraled to a certain extent, what you learned, why that happened, and how you applied those lessons to your future ventures.
Well, when I was asking about the timing of this is where I could spend 5 hours talking about all of the screw-ups that I did at the Knitting Factory that led to taking some time off and then figuring it out for me what I wanted to do with maybe the rest of my life, or certainly the next bunch of time of my life. When we started the Knit, there was almost a black hole in the New York music scene in terms of a place that was ready to suck up all of this great music that was on the fringe, not getting gigs everywhere. That there was so much music, but there wasn't a home for the stuff that was on the edges.
Of which John was a significant
John
part
Zorn
for a
was
long
one,
time.
and Cecil Taylor, but we're going to talk about George Wein a little bit, but like the JVC and the Uptown Jazz world and even the jazz clubs were booking the more traditional artists. So someone like Cecil Taylor and Henry Threadgill and even Ornette Coleman, these like masters, were not getting gigs in the regular traditional festivals or venues, and they were looking for a home. And then the most avant-garde players on the Lower East Side, both black and white players from different scenes, they're hungry for a place to play because there wasn't a place for them. And then the rockers that were on the edge, from Sonic Youth to, new singer-songwriters like They Might Be Giants, or the Indigo Girls, or, coming up from the South who wanted a place. We became this home for all the stuff that was on the fringe. So on one hand, we didn't have to try that hard because everything came in, like a black hole, which was exciting.
This is a bit of a side note. I promise this is a quick digression, but in 2006, Paste Magazine was launching, I forget what it was, but Beck played the Knit in 2006,
Knit, yeah.
And I just found videos of it. It's up on the website, so that is one of those things.
One of his first shows. Certainly in New York, and it was right after Passover. I remember talking to him about his Passover Seder backstage. He was such a young kid. It was really cool. We became this home for everything that was a little bit on the edge, and in that sense, I was so lucky and blessed to come to New York in the late '80s and be able to open up this place. And it was a struggle the whole time, figuring out ways to stay alive, but in terms of having a flow of great talent, that all we needed to do was, open our doors, put on a decent room. Relative to City Winery today, our bathrooms sucked at the Knitting Factory, but
they still suck at the Knitting Factory. I know you guys, not your fault.
They're not my,
but they're still sticky and gross.
Like most clubs that have beer as their primary beverage of choice. The bathrooms stink. But we don't need to go there. The only thing I will note is plumbing has become very important to our business because the better plumbing is in a venue and the more comfortable you feel like peeing, male or female, the more you're going to drink. Because if you're holding it the whole time, that ain't any good.
Well, that leads us beautifully into this. Our buddies at Wines of Germany provided this wonderful German Pinot Noir, which we are drinking right now. So cheers, man. Thanks again for doing this.
This is great.
Yeah.
I mean, invite me over anytime. Anyways,
Did you know that,
go ahead.
Another digression, promise it's short, garbage disposals were not legal in New York City until the 90s?
I did.
Yeah.
But what exactly prompted that question or point?
You were talking about the importance of plumbing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All
That's
right.
done. That's
Yeah.
it.
My point was really selfish. I just want to sell more stuff, But
Yeah,
anyways.
let's sell some books, man.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. I enjoyed this very much.
I appreciate that.
So I definitely want to talk about your relationship to technology and how it evolved and changed from the pretty tech-forward experience of the knitting factory, and then in the intervening years between the knit and City Winery, why those attitudes shifted significantly.
Well, so to go back a little bit with the knit, I mean, it was always a hustle and work to pay our bills, pay our rent. When we started putting out records and they were CDs early on, I wasn't selling a lot of them in the United States. It was a very classic sort of story of the jazz player needing to go to Europe to earn a living and pay their rent. So I would bring duffel bags, literally and they were, it was free carry on or baggage back in the early 90s. And I would go to Frankfurt, Germany every weekend, where I would book this one Sunday morning show at a 3 summers in a row, maybe 10 Sundays. And I'd go with 2 duffel bags filled with 200 CDs. I'd sell them for 30 Deutschmarks a piece. And basically, I'd exchange that for about $6,000 Sunday night. I'd go over for 24 hours, and that paid our rent all summer long. And I couldn't sell that many CDs in the United States, and I certainly wasn't making that from the bar. And with that cash, I was able to actually pay a little bit to the band, as a royalty, pay our bills. But that's what it took, to survive in New York. I mean, for 2 years, I lived with a futon under my desk, and I went to Pineapple Fitness around the corner for $19.99 a month.
Dude, I sleep here regularly, and Planet Fitness is still $19.99 a month. I don't know how they do that.
It's a great deal if you want to live in Manhattan for $19.99 a month, and live and work. It's a good way to go. And frankly, for tough cultural businesses, or many businesses, that's kind of what you got to do. You got to live it. So we did that forever. We did during the .com days start to get some real attention because I was getting sponsorship from Apple and Bell Atlantic, and partly due to the festivals we were creating, but also the sort of getting very interested in the idea of reaching those people in Europe or in Singapore with a new technology. If we could, instead of me schlepping all those CDs over to Europe, now the idea of, wow, we could actually maybe send it through this thing called the World Wide Web. You got to understand that, to me, in 93, 94, when we were experimenting with it, it was through a 8 kilobaud baud modem. We're 3 or 4 frames per second. Just terrible.
And we're sending out 30 frames at 4 megabits on two different streams right now, and that's not even much. I mean, that's like a normal connection. This
was fantasy, world back then, but it was fun because we were realizing, wow, we now can reach people all over the globe. So we were the first club in New York to be first club in the world to be webcasting every night. I got a machine called a Zing server that was only being used by the porno business at that time. And there was, progressive networks, or real networks now. It was a sort of webcasting that developed. They became the preeminent, but Zing was the first one, and they were so popular within the porno world that I had to pay $3,000 cash to get one. But I was so starved to make sure we were doing this. I like reached into the bar at the end of the weekend and, took every last penny we had, to get one of these machines. And then we started playing with that, and it became real networks. And then we got our first sponsorship with Apple and created the Macintosh Music Festival with about 10 clubs in New York. And we were trying to do the same webcasting that we were doing at the Knit now with all these other clubs and created this festival.
Did that tangential relationship to the porn industry help in any part to inspire the name of this book, Scaling Intimacy in a Digital World? Because that sounds like we're talking about porn.
I know, but it's not. It's not. It certainly, look at part of the premise, if we're going to go that direction, you can't digitize sperm. There are certain things you can't digitize, right? And so, there's intimacy and the ability to be with someone in a way that you can get close with, all kinds of AI and really cool 4D stuff, but it's just not the same.
Yeah, and you cannot digitize wine. You can't digitize beer, not yet anyway.
Yeah, not yet. And I use that line a lot in 95, 96, saying, guys, we can't digitize beer. If we could only digitize beer, we'd be, this would be a world. So anyway, I OD'd on technology. The reality is I went overboard, and sometime around 98, 99, I was going to my venue, and I wasn't calling it music anymore. I was calling it content. And, one time we, by accident, left our cameras on during the
it was
during
John, wasn't it?
with John Zorn, and he, legitimately, slapped me around and was like, dude, you got to respect, the music again, like, and it was a eye opener, and frankly, part of my decision to leave the knitting factory was a combination of things, post 9/11, wanting to do something more meaningful with my life, but really I wanted to get back to something that was more sort of like Candide going back to the garden, Voltaire. Like I wanted something more real.
Yeah.
And I got a chance to make a barrel of wine in California in '04, and I drank the Kool-Aid, and I was like, oh my God. And I always loved wine. I collected, some stuff when I could. When we were going to Europe, we were getting a lot of wine thrown at us. I couldn't sell any wine at the knitting factory if I tried, but I liked it personally, and some artists liked it. Lou Reed loved it. A lot of very interesting people loved it.
Man, that segment, the story, which I'm not going to give it away. I mean, there's a lot of good stories in there, but it was Madeleine Albright, right? Mm-hmm. Lou Reed and I don't know how to pronounce it.
Václav Havel,
the great Czech
poet,
president,
and president of the Czech Republic. That was a great night, and it's in the book. The great tagline is somewhere Googleable on Rolling Stone. Saying where it was in print back in the day, because really internet, and where Zorn just yelled at all of us and said, "You upstairs, shut the fuck up." And there was about 8 Secret Service around Madeleine Albright and about 8 around Václav Havel of the Czech Secret Service, and they all went for like their weapons. And Lou Reed and I were laughing so hard. It was, but anyway, it's a very special, great story. We couldn't sell wine at the Knit, but I always loved it. And then the chance to make wine, actually, and to be able to watch the grape evolve from the literally pre-harvest on the vine to in a barrel to then, in a bottle. It's a living, organism, and you can see the evolution. And I was like, oh my God, I love this. And I actually took my family on a vacation to Oregon.
Yeah, Willamette Valley.
Willamette Valley,
yeah,
love it. And another Pinot country. Thank you for being so considerate with some delicious Pinot here.
Thank you, Stephen.
And I love Pinot, and I stopped the car. I had, of course, gone to about 3 tastings, and now my family's sound asleep in the car. And I go past a for sale sign, and I call it up, the number, and luckily there was someone who answered, and I said, "What do you got?" And they're like, "It's 30 acres, and there's this and this," and it was several $1 million, which meant I would have had to completely sell my apartment in New York, borrow everything I got, and and then a mortgage. It would have been very crazy.
But that seems like a particular risk that you have been willing to take on a number of occasions throughout your career.
At this
You have done
particular
a
moment-
lot of overextension, and it has sometimes turned out well, sometimes not. But you just seemingly have done it quite
Well,
a few
I
times.
think I
landed on your
overextended
feet.
even more pre-children. You know,
Sure.
I pretended to be more responsible. I tried a little bit, knowing that we have, you know, little guys who need to, you know, be taken care of for hopefully only 21 years. It's probably gonna be
Right,
like
through
30. but,
college.
like, so, you know, the thing is, I at that moment, my epiphany was, that's it. I want to move to Oregon. I'm ready to get out of the music business. I want to make wine. You know, of course, I'll have some sort of music theme and all, but I'm making wine. I just want to be a farmer, work on a tractor. And so I woke the kids up from the back seat and my wife, who was in the front seat, and I was like, all right, family meeting, everyone. Dad wants to move here, gonna start making wine. And my 8-year-old boys, who, of course, grew up in a jazz household and therefore swore a lot, in unison said, no fucking way, Dad. Can we swear on this one? Is that all right?
Fuck yeah, dude. Curse all you want.
Good. So no fucking way. And my wife, who normally gets really mad at me for this stuff, like because the kids swear and, well, anything wrong they do is my fault, looked at me and said, and then looked at the kids and said, that's excellent intonation and well phrased, children, you know.
Fuck no, Dad, that's nuts.
So, but that forced the idea of, all right, I'm going to have to do an urban winery somehow in New York City if I want to actually combine these interests. And then there's an old saying in wine, it's easy to make good wine, it's hard to sell it. And so in my due diligence realized, you know, I better not just be a pure urban winery in Manhattan, that I should mash it up with what I used to do, put on shows, gravitate the programming to little older, you know, singer-songwriter, less standing, more seated type of environment. And maybe in that setting, I could sell more wine and make wine and dress up a venue around the theme of a urban winery. And
yeah, it's always fantastically comfortable. I think Langhorne Slim was the first one that I saw at your place. It was soon after I had moved to New York and went to see Langhorne Slim, and it does have a grown-up vibe about it. Never will I ever pick up my foot and realize that the floor is extremely sticky. It does seem like an evolved version of nightlife.
We tried to make it very comfortable, very sophisticated experience, and not just, you know, I get to ask this a lot of times and say, oh, well, it's skewed towards an older demographic, and certainly there, you know, is a more affluent, you know, older demo there, but I really like to talk about psychographics. I really think it's about people who want to have a sophisticated evening, and someone might go, you know, to see a standing show one night or go to a festival environment. But then, you know, they're looking to just have a 2-hour, really comfortable sit-down experience where they're combining the food and wine and the show. And when you can do that right, it creates magic. And that was basically the thesis, you know, in the book. I think my overdosing, if you will, of technology made me think, while I was wandering the desert, you know, after getting out of the knitting factory and not knowing what I was going to do, and my children basically denying me the ability to move out west, I was like, I want to do something really more meaningful, more important. And where do I want to spend my time? And how do I think it's going to really create this environment for other people that they're going to really relish that moment, that time? Let's figure out a place that really is magic. And now I'm, you know, convinced that as we're immersed in screens and phone and all day long, and even going home to relax, you're now watching a television screen, that we need to get into nature a little bit. We need to go to Soul Cycle, or we need to meditate, or we need to do those things where you're touching and feeling, you know, the sensory components of this world. And as a venue, for us to be able to create a window, 2 hours, whatever that show might be, where we actually, people don't even think about taking out their phone, you know, that we've completely indulged all of their senses and creating this magical environment, then we're doing our job absolutely right. And so that's no, we don't want to be draconian and like force people to put their phones in a basket the way, you know, some places experiential are thinking you should do. We definitely want the Instagram and the social and some of that, or I like to know that someone needed to send me a text. My parents got my kids, whatever. There's a problem that I'm reachable.
Dude, they can't send me a text. I on Jeff's birthday, almost 3 months ago to the day, threw my phone in a trash can at the counting room in Williamsburg, and I have not had one since. And so my parents know if they have to get in touch with me, they can give my wife a call. But otherwise, I mean, granted, we were drinking quite a bit that evening, and I probably wouldn't have thrown it away had that not been the case. But the underlying thought process was there and the same.
Yeah.
I don't want to be tethered to this thing because I'm just as bad as anybody about scrolling mindlessly through my feed. And so I threw it in the trash can, and I have not replaced it because of all of those same reasons. And I find that my life is improved for having done that. And I am not planning on replacing it at any point until I absolutely have to. But I don't see what event could trigger me having to have a phone because it's been working for 3 months. So I'm going to keep it going.
That's very intense.
And I mean, a lot of the lessons in this book are exactly along those lines and were the same thoughts that I had when I decided to do that.
On the other hand, I mean, so God bless you. That's like remarkable. I don't think I could do that. And I'm not a Luddite. I'm not saying you are, but I'm not.
I made this up. There's nothing Ludd about this.
I know. I think technology is critical in our business in order to get people to come in order to market what we do. We need that transactional side. I mean, we built our own proprietary ticketing system. We're not using the big guys because we think we built a better service, way to get people to come in, and we know the data, and we can actually tell that the Joan Osborne fan drinks more Pinot Noir than the Joan Armatrading fan who drinks more Cabernet. And while I'm not sure what we're going to ever do with that data, thank you. We believe data is important, but it's really just to get people in the room.
Yeah, certainly. And I am not suggesting that there is one is, technology is an absolute, there's anything wrong with it whatsoever.
It's delicious, by the way.
Yeah, it is, man. Thank you very much for bringing it. Yeah. There is some kind of intersection where both things are necessary at the same time.
Yep.
And I want to talk a little bit more about this guy, about this book. And so who did you write this for? I mean, I enjoyed all the stories, and I enjoyed it in the same way that that I have enjoyed many music memoirs that I've read. And I got to the end and realized that this index is super heavy, and it's indexed kind of the same way a textbook would be. I mean, is this for business school kids? Is this for music fans in general? I mean, I would assume it's kind of for everybody, but who did you envision reading this when you wrote it?
Actually, there was a little combination of music entrepreneurs. I seem to do really well in the music business schools as a lecturer, and I love doing it. I love my half-hour talk and then an hour of Q&A with students, and they have so much. They want to know so much about where they go, and they pitch plans, and I really like that. So yeah, I'm doing a bunch of college stuff, and that part's really, really enjoyable. I wrote it for a couple of reasons, but I do this concert series at Carnegie Hall.
Yeah.
And
we had Glenn Hansard in here just after he did because the last one was Van Morrison. Wasn't
last one was Van Morrison.
Yeah,
and Glenn has done like 4 or 5 of them. And Glenn is amazing, and I actually ask Glenn every time, who should we do next? Like, give me your ideas. Love Glenn. But anyways,
do you want to tease any of those ideas?
There's some of the obvious ones that we haven't done yet. I've been trying to get Stevie Wonder to agree to do it, and
All right.
You'll see.
Keep in mind that if you needed additional promotional work to happen before any of those shows, that this is exactly what this room does. So
I will,
yeah.
and thank you. That it's one of the more fun things I get to do is being a kid in a candy shop on multi levels. One, pick the honoree, and then get to pick great artists to do the songs of. But I'm backstage, and I just read Patti Smith's Just Kids. Really great, story, and talking about Robert Mapplethorpe and all that time of New York. And I knew she would be there for sound check and all, and I've known her for a long time, but she's an incredible, intimidating presence. I still get starstruck with a lot of these cats, and So anyways, I sat next to her backstage after she did her sound check, and I had my book conveniently with me, and I was like, Patty, would you mind signing this? I gotta ask you, like, how did you remember all these great stories? Like, there was so much detail, just like texture in these moments. And she goes, I've been keeping a diary my whole life, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm the biggest schmuck in the world because, boy, I don't remember the first 7 years of the Knitting Factory, and the iPhone wasn't out then, so I don't have my photo brain, to trigger these thoughts. So
and no chance would she have remembered chunks of the 70s without written evidence of it.
So her book was so eloquent and just had such granular detail, and so I really right after that I was thinking I got to start writing stuff down. And then kind of simultaneously around that time, Paul Keegan, who was the ghostwriter on this book, was interviewing me for Inc. magazine on some stuff. And I liked him a lot, and we got along, and he was asking some great questions, actually helping. And what came out, manifested in his piece, made me sound so much smarter than I really am. And so I liked the dude a lot.
Thank you, Paul.
And then kind of also around that time, my publicist says, you ought to do a book. It would be good for your career, and you got to do it. And I know this literary agent at CAA, and I just mentioned it to her, and she really thinks it's a great idea. And I'm sure you could, get an advance from a publisher to make it worth, And I'm like, whoa. So then we start meeting, and I realized, well, first of all, whatever advance is going to come, it's all going to the writer, to Paul. And there's a tad bit of real, vanity in the whole project. But should I write this for both preserving these memories? Is there some lessons there for young people, or for anyone who's
I took quite a bit away from it. I mean, the right off the bat, the knowledge that the dude who started the knit and the dude who started the City Winery were the same person, that's an interesting piece of factual history that I had no idea. And I imagine that a lot of people don't know that. And I mean, way beyond just Googleable facts. There was, I took a lot away from this book.
Well, I hope it, I hope it reads fairly well. I mean, that's what some people are basically, it's you kind of do want to move on and see what happens, which I guess is the essence of a storyteller. So, I'm having fun with it. I do feel a little guilty because I'm so busy with building the new City Winery at Pier 57, and we just opened Philadelphia 2 weeks ago, and we're opening Hudson Valley in about 2 months, and we have a...
Wait, where in the Hudson Valley?
We're in town of Montgomery. We're building...
Fort Montgomery, right there. Oh.
Not Fort Montgomery, which is about 4 miles due west of Newburgh, near Stewart Airport.
Okay.
Small town.
Where is that in relation to Beacon?
To Beacon, it's about 20 minutes due west.
Okay.
It's so actually from a train perspective, you would take a train to Beacon and then a 15-minute taxi. Cross 84, that bridge, and then you're there. It's right on the Wallkill River. It's a hydroelectric plant. Oh, you'll like this. Check this out. It's a 60,000 square foot set of buildings on the Wallkill River. Its official title is the Montgomery Mills. It's been around since 1812, burnt down in 1890, and then rebuilt. And we're renovating the rebuilt from 1890. But it was a working knitting factory.
No way.
Yeah, it was a knitting factory. It's got all the equipment.
Knitting factory is the...
It was made up by me, but but
knitting is like a solitary one-person thing, not like a factory.
But so it's a sweater manufacturer.
Okay.
But it was a mill, so it was spinning the yarn. It's as close to a knitting factory as there's such a thing as a knitting factory.
This is amazing knowledge. I did not. I've been finding out things for this particular interview. I did not know that was happening. And the Hudson River and the Hudson Valley is one of my favorite places to spend time. So man,
you're gonna dig it. It's 22 acres. We planted vines, so it's gonna be a really beautiful wedding site, outdoor concert space, and a place to taste our wine. So we moved all our wine production up there already because we're homeless in New York City, and then we'll reopen at Pier 57 in February of 2020.
And what's happening right now? So between now and February, it's not as though City Winery in New York City is not doing anything, right?
We're
Are you
putting
guys
on
doing stuff at like right down the street at the Cutting Room?
Yeah,
right?
we do. We're doing a bunch of shows at Cutting Room. We have a town hall show, and we have City Vineyard, which was a space we built more of a restaurant outdoor setting at Pier 26 for the last few years, and we're putting on a lot of shows inside there as the weather's gotten a little nastier and the outdoor sort of stuff is less. We've been using that, and then by the time it turns into warmer springtime in New York, and City Vineyard goes back to being this rosé consuming assembly line, the new place will be open, and I'm psyched because, while we had this pretty crazy story of the church, doing kind of the wrong thing to us on Varick Street, and that's a whole nother story. What has come out is
Disney and the church and the wine. That's a good story.
Yeah, it's a good one.
But it's an evolving story. This thing is far.
Yeah, in fact, the book ends right with the last few words. Just going. We'll see where it goes.
The acknowledgments at the end, right?
Yeah, the update basically is looks like we've survived the Trinity Church's motion to dismiss the lawsuit, and so we're.
Is this just developing like in the last couple weeks, or is that?
Oddly enough, on Yom Kippur, we got notice that they wanted, us to appear to do oral arguments. Now, of course, my law firm is all Jewish, and I'm Jewish.
No way.
And we got the notice on Kol Nidre, like at 4:00 the day before. We're fasting, right? And so we. It is probably a coincidence, but it's just a little weird that Trinity Church somehow, after 6 months of this legal paperwork being in, it just on the spot the day before Yom Kippur, we get noticed you got to appear tomorrow and give oral arguments, on Yom Kippur. Little weird. Anyways, luckily our law firm had somebody to represent us. We survived, and now we're either going to full litigation. What we're hoping is that the church knows that they did wrong, that now that there could be real legal consequences beyond seeing the paper lawsuit. Now the judge has said, you guys can't dismiss this. This is real. Maybe we'll get what was due to us. And there's bottom line is I relied on their promise. We'd have 3 to 5 years. And we ended up having 12 months. And
after having put in the
a couple more $1 million. The loft and that whole second floor. Yep. We'll see what happens. I'm hoping Trinity in the end is a little bit more of a mensch and takes care of us. We'll see. Meanwhile, we've started construction. We're building the most beautiful temple to music at Pier 57. We're cohabitating this great big pier with Google. We've got this awesome space, and it's the 11 years of now building city wineries across the country. I've learned a lot of lessons, figured out like the design really down. So I've been doing this 32 years. A lot of clubs, and now I'm actually able to build what I think is the ultimate New York venue. I think it's just going to be spectacular.
Yeah, I agree, man. I'm looking forward to it. I've always enjoyed shows at your venues, the City Winery, and the previous venues. I've always had a good time at Knitting Factory too. It's a different kind of good time, but I've always had a good time. So I'm looking forward to. Tell me again the opening date of Pier 57.
Well, I wish I could tell you the precise opening date. If you could talk to the contractor gods and see if they don't lie to me.
2020.
But it's going to be end of February, early March of 2020.
That's pretty specific, man. I'll be there.
Yeah.
As long as we're not at South by, I'll be there. I'll drink some wine. And, dude, I really appreciate you coming by and doing this. And
I'm thrilled you read the whole thing.
I read it in the woods, man.
Yeah, and you read it in the woods
with a bottle of Fernet, and I was very much taken by all of the lessons in here because it's important, man. It is important to indulge your senses and have some Fernet in the fucking woods. Man. And I did that, and I enjoy it very much. Indulge Your Senses: Scaling Intimacy in a Digital World is the name of this book. Michael Dorf, dude, I really appreciate you doing it.
My pleasure.
And there's so much more wine. I don't know what you have to do this afternoon, but I'm gonna drink it.
I'll have it a little more. I mean, we didn't get to George wine.
That's right. That's right, man.
That's all right. We can
Well,
talk about it off camera.
Yeah, outstanding, man. Well, thank you very much for
My
doing
pleasure,
it.
man.
And all right.
Thank you.